But I did want to get back to the earlier demos, to save them for the afternoon. But we have a couple more demos that I want to show. So where I last was talking about the watch, rate, and compare model that we saw. And so we've got a little bit of time that you can use to show a couple of additional demos, and then we'll go on to Julie's talk. One thing we talked about earlier was learning by doing. We showed a little bit of a simulation, and in the large scale AI learn by doing environment view that I have with the guy from Greece, and I'll show more of that later in my afternoon talk and some other things. There's so much more we can do with learning by doing and giving people the best experiences possible. What we saw earlier was a learn by doing simulation in a sales environment, which was a sort of a brief customer service and sales activity where you had sort of limited choices. The ideal version of that model would be you're speaking freely, right? Like, so you are the salesperson, the customer service person, it's really both. You're speaking freely, you get real answers to whatever you say, you get an appropriate response, you get appropriate coaching. Now that's beyond the world that we can live in right now, and beyond what natural language understanding can do. And we certainly wouldn't have a video of our customer Moira sitting in the store for every possible situation if it's done in video. Down the line, maybe it gets a step closer, and rather than pre-recorded videos, we're doing more with very realistic avatars, and avatars that behave in certain ways and feel realistic no matter what. So then James, the customer service salesperson, could ask whatever he wanted or say whatever he wanted. So there's all of that is part of the overall long-term view and vision of how those could be. And the AI coach is part of that as well, having somebody who's your mentor. Maddie and I were just talking about, what's freedom of choice versus what's the need for advice. And the same is true in a simulation, right? So in an ideal simulation, you are learning by doing, but you might want advice, and you can control that. Hey, I don't know what to do next. How do I handle the situation? I'm new at it. Somebody help me. Or some people say, no, you know what? I don't really want to hear anybody's view about what I should do. I just want to jump ahead, and I want to try to solve this problem. And both of those, those are equally legitimate. They are perfectly reasonable approaches. Different people may approach things differently. Different people will do things in different contexts differently, and we want to support them all. And so by creating the right environments with that kind of flexibility, we put ourselves in a good position. And that's one of the things I love about the Learn by Doing model. I'm going to show you, having said that, move to an actually simpler Learn by Doing model, which is not social. This is a Learn by Doing model to handle a fairly simple but important task, maybe less so with the pandemic. And this is, I'm going to show you this in just one second. This is a Learn by Doing model where people learn to make change. So this is for retail students, people who are looking for a job in retail. It's usually students in high school or community colleges, or sometimes later in life, who are looking for a retail job. And one of the things they actually need to learn is how to make change when people pay them in cash. And this is something you need to do efficiently and accurately. You need to be fast. People don't want to stand around, and you need to be able to do this quickly. So this is jumping ahead a little bit, but you need to be able to do this quickly. So I'm going to show you this example in just a second of a little activity that helps you make change. And for people who pay by cash, which happens less and less in the pandemic days, what is it like? So we're going to show this example, and I'm going to show you, this has no sound, so I will talk over it. So let's watch a little bit. This is also for the NRF Foundation, part of the Rise Up program, the National Retail Federation. All right, so what we're seeing, and I'll pause for a second, is you're asked to calculate the amount of change needed for different purchases. So here we have a customer who gives you $10 for a toothbrush that's $4.75. All right, so it's $4.75. And how do you make the purchase? And this is not, by the way, just so you see what's happening, I'm making the change as the student. 520 is not yet the correct change. I am pulling from the cash drawer as the student and have to get the appropriate amount of change in the correct coin. So you want to use the fewest number of coins and bills. So there's another challenge to this. It's not just that you want to get the amount right. So I'm calculating that the amount should be $5.25. And I think the person in this video will get there. But it's also that you want to do it using the fewest coins and bills possible. So there's a challenge to this, and it's surprisingly hard in certain ways. It's incredibly hard, but and to do it quickly. So we're going to watch this finish. All right, and when you say you're done, you tell the machine that you're done. It says you did this right. So you actually got the right amount, but the nice job is a little bit generous because you didn't need to do it in as many coins and bills. So now what it's going to show you is, well, you could have done this instead of 2 dimes and a nickel. So it's 10 cents each for the dime, 5 for the nickel. You could have used a quarter. So you could have done this, a little bit differently. So we're going to move ahead on that. All right. And then we ask you to do it one more time and do it right. All right. So this time you did it using fewest number of coins and bills. You had a $5 bill and a quarter, and that was it. Okay. All right. Then you're given another one. So we want to see one more of these. It's a little bit more complex. We'll watch this one go through. So again, it's a nice little model, and it's a useful experience for people, and it gives them practice doing something that's realistic. And you don't quite get the feel of the money. There is a degree to which this isn't fully realistic, and could be a step better in some kind of virtual world. But in an online environment, you do it by clicking, and you do choose the right bills, and that's one of the key criteria and one of the key things that you need to learn. Okay, so moving back to the slides, this is, as I mentioned, created for the National Retail Federation Foundation, the NRF Foundation. Elizabeth is asking if this is built in Articulate, and this was built in Articulate Storyline. At my company, Kaleidoscope Learning, we do a lot of sort of higher end products on our own. We have our own platform that we use for sort of some of the higher end things. This was done in Storyline and worked out quite well. So this produced a SCORM file for an LMS, and so we were working within those limitations. So there's no AI in this, but it was in Storyline. So yes. All right, so I've seen the demonstration. Realistic practice, one of the key things here. This was, as realistic as you can get, I think, within this kind of environment. And it felt real to people. Again, you don't get the feel for the money. There's sort of, you don't get the muscle memory. Like we've used a couple of sports examples over the past couple of days. You don't, and not just me, you don't get the muscle memory of doing the activity. And that's something that, in an ideal simulation, you would be able to get at least, and you would get the touch too, right? I mean, if you really could do this the ideal right way. But given what we have, people are doing this online. They don't have, bills at home to do this. They don't set this up. You do get a lot of the realism that you want. And again, the learners are asked to do something. They're not, they're not just told, this is how you make change. It's not, here's just a little math problem. Sometimes we'll do this kind of thing where they'll even see a real customer come up in photo or video and not just say make change, but here's the customer. This person is purchasing, something that, a toothbrush for $4.75. You will see the person and the toothbrush, and it adds to their feel for it. But they have to do something. And so you're really doing the task. You're doing a task that is very much like the task that you're going to do in real life. And that's one of the other keys. You also get feedback from a coaching component. And this is another key element here. And the coach here isn't giving you all that much, but that does give you a little bit, right? So you're not just getting, this is right, this is wrong. You are getting, here's what is right or wrong about it, right? So the goals are make it accurate, do in the fewest number of bills. And arguably the time, which was not considered to be important enough to measure here. But you could easily imagine a model of this one that uses some kind of speed meter to tell you if you're doing it fast enough, and I'll actually show an example of something else like that a little bit later on as well. So there's something to that. Here the feedback though is it's not just you're right or wrong, it's yeah, this was right accurately, this is correct, but you didn't do it in the fewest number of bills and coins. So you get more than that. If you did it incorrectly, you would get as much as the coach could understand about what you did incorrectly. So if you were making a common mistake, it might know, the coach would at least be able to know. People often make the mistake where they, miscalculate and say 550 instead of 525. So if there's a reason you might do that, I don't think this example really was one for confusion, but there are some where there's an easy miscalculation that people make. The coach is prepared to do that as well. So that's another key piece. You also do get, you can get some feedback from the environment. So here, you saw when you pick a bill, it goes somewhere. It's not exactly the real environment. But you also saw that when you selected something, it when you saw that it was selected on the little screen. So not everything was 100% realistic, but when you took an action, it gave you some kind of feedback there as well. This isn't quite the kind of task where there's feedback from the actual real environment as there would be in something else, right? So in a social simulation, like the Moira and James scenario, you might see in a version of that, if something doesn't go well, you'll see Moira being upset. You saw her, you saw something that James said and she wrinkled her nose and you thought like, I don't, how do we handle that? So here you don't get that. But again, each of these are options that we have. We're not going to build them all for anything, but we are going to build them for different things. Last piece, and this one has, again, an asterisk next to it because it really was very much not included in this particular model, but I think it's important to always be aware of and think about coaching guidance. So here, this is a fairly straightforward task. So as a learner, as a retail person, as an aspiring retail worker or a new retail worker, you have a sense of how this is done. You've shopped before, you've seen people make change. Soon we will eventually, at some point we'll age out of the group will age out of people who've seen actual cash change that may happen sooner than we think, and then they will no longer need this activity, I suppose. But you do, you've seen this. You're not unfamiliar with the activity or what it means. So there's no coaching guidance component here. So there's no, when I need to make change, nobody to help you. Okay, I don't know what to do. What should I do? It's fairly clear. You're going to try to make the change. Calculate it. You should know math well enough to be able to do it in order to work in this job. That's kind of the background for the job. So that's where the point is. But often coaching guidance is really, really helpful to give someone an idea of, what do I do next? What should I be thinking about? What weighs into this decision in a Learn by Doing simulation? And it really just depends on the simulation. What is it that you're teaching, and what do you want to put together? And all of those are key factors that weigh into things. So kind of where we are on this demo. So I do have other demos to show you later, but I'm going to save at least one for this afternoon's closing session. So I'm going to let that one, save that one. It is still there. And we'll keep talking about learning experience design throughout the day, and as we keep seeing more examples of all kinds of other things.